Welcome to Connecting to Spirit with Stacey, a weekly journey into the spiritual world with Evidential Medium Stacey Niedentohl. With nearly 10 years of experience offering transformative private, group, and platform readings, Stacey is also a passionate mentor, guiding students for over 5 years to unlock their intuitive gifts. She is the author of 2 impactful books, My Head Knows, But My Heart Still Hurts, a 30-day grief recovery journal, and My Chrystal Addiction Diary, an exploration of crystal and stone energy for healing. So please welcome the host of Connecting to Spirit, Stacey Niedentohl.
Hello, good evening, good morning. I guess depending on where you're at in the country, it would depend on if it's morning, evening, or afternoon. I am your host, Evidential Medium Stacey Niedentohl, and author of My Head Knows But My Heart Still Hurts and My Crystal Addiction Diary. We're streaming live on Brave Bold TV. Get a little tongue-tied, first episode, but we're also available on other streaming platforms like YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and Amazon Music. So since this is the first podcast, and so you may or may not know who Evidential Medium Stacey Niedenthal is, I thought I would talk to you about who I am, what I do, and how I found out I could speak to those on the other side. But before we delve into that, before we talk about that, I wanted to tell you about a few upcoming show ideas that I have. So, some of the things that we're going to talk about is we're going to be taking a closer look into the spiritual realm. We're going to talk about things that maybe you just don't know who to talk to about because it seems so woo woo or out of the box or what will people think. So, some of the subjects we're going to talk about are how to find a medium and what to expect at a reading, why even go to a meeting. We're going to talk about angels and guides and ascended masters, past life regressions, things like meditation and coming back home to yourself after loss, ways that you can find wholeness and oneness within you. Everything is deep within you. You just have to wake it up a little bit sometimes. Eventually, I don't know how far down the road, but in a few episodes, we'll even do some live angel card readings, some energy readings, take live calls or comments. I want this to be a very open forum, and I want you to see the integrity behind an evidential medium. I'm human. I'm just like everybody else. I just have the ability to talk to those on the other side. So I definitely want to have one-to-one chats with you. And if you have an idea for the show or a question about what we're talking about, please feel free to email me at connectingtospiritwithstacey@gmail.com. Put in the subject line podcast idea, podcast questions. I promise you, I will read them and I will contemplate them and see which questions, which ideas that we can work into a show. I can't promise that we'll do them all, but I will do as many as possible. Because all in all, this is about your healing. This is about me helping to facilitate you healing, walking through grief, connecting to others on the other side, walking in your spiritual journey. So those are just some show ideas that I have about that. I'm excited about it. I hope you're excited about it as well. I've come a long way, baby. So I just wanted to explain to you a little bit about me. So, like I said, my name's Stacey Niedenthal. I'm an evidential medium. I've been married to my husband, Jeff, for 30 years. We celebrated 30 years this year. And I have 3 adult children and 5 grandchildren that I absolutely adore. Imagine being the children and the grandchildren of a psychic medium. Like, how crazy is that? You go to school and you talk about, this is what my grandma does for a living. So I actually live in an old converted elementary school that is a hippie biker boho shop, Hip Gypsy Emporium. You kind of, get the idea of what's in it. The room that you're looking at right now was the office where you entered. And then my reading room behind us, that yellow door with yellow brick road, right? That's where I do private readings. So I want to talk about how long I've been an evidential medium and what that means. So I've been a medium. I've been a working medium, out of the closet medium, however you want to talk about it, for 10 years. And I'm very proud of the fact that for the first 7 years, I was basically taught by spirit. I read a lot of books. I did a lot of meditating. I questioned a lot of different things. But all in all, I was able to, on my own, connect and find the confidence to come within myself and channel. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that a little bit later. But when I first started opening up to spirit, a very good friend of mine, who we'll talk about, I had a conversation with her and I said, there's a school in Arizona that I could take classes. There's Arthur Findlay College. There's a place in New York. There's places all over the place that you can take these mediumship classes. And she just very matter-of-factly looked at me and said, well, why would you take a class for something that comes naturally to you? Why not practice with the ability that you have? And then when you need a mentor, one will appear. Very, very wise woman. She's one of those people that can think about what she's going to say and then say it in a way that you're like, oh my God, I never thought about it that way. So that's what I did. I practiced for very many years until I found a mentor. So where did it all start? So probably about 15 years ago, I was having a lot of panic attacks and anxiety attacks where, I mean, literally 15 to 20 times a day, I would spiral into an attack. And I didn't necessarily know where I was or what I was doing. At first, I would go into the bathroom and I would hide in the shower till it was over. And I remember kind of being balled up in the corner of the shower and just trying to breathe through it. Until one day my husband walked in, he's like, what the heck's going on? So I told him that I felt this anxiety and I felt anxious and, ticking clocks bugged the heck out of me. Literally, God bless him. He took down every single ticking clock in the house because as the clock ticked, it felt like the end of like the Looney Tunes commercials where the hole was getting closer and closer. And I felt like I was becoming invisible. And it just, with each tick, it just felt like I could feel this tick. When he would talk to me, when my husband would talk to me when I was in the middle of a panic attack, I could literally feel his words coming at me. And he's got this very deep, gruff voice. And I remember one time saying, this isn't helping me. So he softened his voice, or he would pull me to his chest and say, breathe with me. Just breathe. It's okay. Just breathe with me. So after this went on for several months, Jeff finally said to me, you need to go to the doctor. You need to find out what's going on. And I am not a go to the doctor type of person. I just feel like if I state I'm not going to get sick, then I'm not going to get sick. And I don't get sick. I set my intentions. I don't get sick. Right. But this has gotten so out of hand, and I felt like I was spiraling out of control. I would literally sit between my husband's legs and he would put his hands on my shoulders and it would ground me because I felt like I was leaving my body. We had a huge supply of those ice pops, those popsicles that you would get as a kid. I feel like my throat was closing in or my tongue was swelling. I remember saying to him, look at my tongue, is my tongue swelling? He would give me one of those cool pops, we would breathe, and I would calm down. So I went to my doctor. I explained kind of what was going on, not in a roundabout way. But I remember saying to Ed, who is my doctor, I don't call him Dr. So-and-so, he's Ed. Um, I don't know if I have Alzheimer's or dementia or schizophrenia, but something's happening. I'm going crazy, and I'm not sure what to do about it." And he just kind of looked at me and said, "Look, you're not even 50 years old. It's not Alzheimer's or dementia, maybe schizophrenia." And he kind of laughed about it because I do have a quirky sense of humor in our relationship. And he sent me to a therapist, and I talked to the therapist. I did the meds. And sometimes I was seeing my doctor 2 and 3 times a day when these attacks would come. And at one point, Jeff said to me, "Listen, I'm taking you to the doctor." And when we got there and Ed was like, "What's going on?" And I would explain it, Jeff kind of perked up and he said, "Did she tell you about this? Did she tell you about this?" And these were all things that I had not said to my doctor. So Ed was basically like, "You've got a lot of stuff going on. I need you to talk to your therapist about this. They need to be able to give you tools that when you feel this is coming on, you have the tools to calm it down." And they were things like if an attack comes on, and I'll just kind of give you this in case you don't know. If you feel an attack coming on, you try and broaden what you're seeing. So you try and find 5 things around you that you can touch, that you can move, and that makes you feel safe. So just in where I'm at right now, like there's the door and I can open the door and I can leave. And the light switch is over there. I can turn the lights on and off. And there's a window here that I can open it up and I can get fresh air. But you're broadening what where your mind is coming in. So I learned some of these tools and it helped. And I was on medication and it slowed things down, but it didn't totally take it away. And I was afraid to come off of the medication, but I was afraid to stay on the medication because taking too many meds can do this to your liver and can do this, and it can just do all this crazy stuff to your body. Well, through the therapy, there were some traumatic experiences that I had gone through that I thought I had overcome. Keyword, thought that I overcame. But there were things that were still buried deep within me that I still needed to walk through and address. I was in a very toxic relationship before I met my now husband. And certain things would trigger me, certain scents, or a certain way somebody would look at me, or certain things that people would say. And I had to learn that I was no longer in that situation, that I had survived it. And certain words, certain places would kick these off, would ignite them. And I needed to stay away from some of those places. Well, some of those places that I enjoyed going to was like to Gettysburg. I'm what, 11, 12 miles from Gettysburg. And Jeff and I enjoyed just going to Gettysburg every once in a while. And we would be walking around and I felt like I was like dodging bullets or dodging people walking by me. It wasn't, I didn't understand at the time that it was spirit, that it was energy. I just thought, "Oh my goodness, what's going on? Something's coming at me." And I would just draw closer to him. And Jeff was such a main staple in our marriage. He showed up unbelievably and walked me through so many different things where he would call me in the morning to make sure I was out of bed. And if I wasn't out of bed, he's like, "I'll call you in 15 minutes. I need you to get up and take a shower." And then he would call me back. And if I hadn't taken a shower, he was like, "Do I need to come home from work?" And it got to the point where he was even like telling me what to wear because it was too overwhelming for me to figure that out. And when we get back, we're going to take a short break. But when we get back, I want to talk to you more about what happened next. So stay tuned. This is Connecting to Spirit with Stacey. I'm your connection to spirit, Stacey Niedentohl, and we'll be back in a few seconds, or I guess a few minutes.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hello, and welcome back to Connecting to Spirit with Stacey. I'm your host, Stacey Niedentohl, your connection to spirit over this hour, broadcasting live on Bold Brave TV, on Bold Brave Media, also on YouTube and Dweezer and Podcast Addict and all your major broadcasting podcasting medias. So before the break, I was just explaining to you about the panic attacks and things that were happening and how, with the luck of my husband, like I'm still here. There was one point where I was at home and I was working remotely, and I left, I got in my Jeep, and I drove to a local convenience store. I got a Dr. Pepper. I was addicted to Dr. Pepper. I came out of the convenience store, put the Dr. Pepper on the roof of the car, and started walking. I don't know where I was going. I don't know why I was walking, but all of a sudden I just started walking. And I feel like I was about a mile and a half down the road, and I saw this like used car lot on the left-hand side, and all of a sudden I came to, and I thought, what am I doing? So I turned around, I walked back, I was like retracing my steps. I went back to my Jeep, got the Dr. Pepper off of the roof of the car, hopped in my Jeep, and drove home. My husband, of course, was worried sick. He's like, I've been trying to call you. You weren't answering. Where have you been? And I didn't know exactly what was going on. So I just said to him, you know what? I went to the park for a little while. I just wanted to go for a walk and just be outside and not listen to any phones or anything like that. Well, a few minutes later, my mother-in-law came to the house, and I'm wearing this bright red shirt. And she said to me, I thought I saw you walking down Route 16. Was that you today? And I remember looking at her like going, shut up, no. And he caught that. My husband knows me better than anybody in the world. I swear he's psychic. So afterwards, he just kind of pulled me to the side and said, okay, what's going on? So I explained to him what had happened. And I said to him, you know what? I don't feel like I'm suicidal, but I feel like I understand how the mind clicks off and you're on autopilot. And that scares me. So back to the therapist I went to delve inside of that. So a couple weeks later, I get a phone call. We're working at a flea market. It's on a Saturday. I get this phone call. I answer the phone call, and the voice on the other side of the phone says, your mother doesn't have pneumonia. She has lung cancer. And I need you to come to the hospital so we can all talk about what her plans are. Whew, like out of left field. My mom didn't smoke, she didn't drink, but she had lung cancer. So we went to the hospital, we made a plan. I was laser focused, listening intently at the doctor who spoke with a little bit of an accent. My father and my sister were emotionally upset, of course. But I'm the type of person, if there's a problem, if there's a catastrophe, come to me, I will freak out later. So I jump into defense mode and I'm listening to everything that they said. And the kindness of this man's voice, who then later put us in touch with an oncologist, said to us, look, this is a very aggressive type of cancer. We cannot cure it, but with some chemotherapy treatments, we might be able to slow it down. If she can withstand 4 to 6 treatments, we might be able to extend her lifespan. So that was that. We took her home and she started with her therapy. And my sister and I would switch off with my father to go with her. And I think she got to her 3rd treatment. And no, it was the 4th treatment. And my sister was there and they said, your white blood count is too low. We need you to go to the ER immediately. Now, like I said, this started in April and she passed in June. And her treatments were like 2 weeks apart. So it was 2 off, 2 on. So my sister immediately called me. I, of course, rushed to the hospital. And mom's laying there. And I asked her if she wanted to listen to some music. And she wanted to listen to Elvis and Engelbert Humperdinck. Those were her favorites. And the doctor pulls myself, my sister, and my father to the side and apologizes. He says, I am very, very sorry. I do not know your mother, but she's very sick. And she can either continue to try and do the chemotherapy or we can put her on comfort care. And I didn't know what comfort care was. So I thought, oh, that sounds good. And I remember looking at the doctor and say, what's comfort care? And he said, that's hospice. And like the wind just came out. So here's my father and my sister comforting each other. I had to be the one to have a conversation with her. And I remember saying to her, whatever you decide to do, I will champion the fight. So if you want to continue chemotherapy, we will continue it. If you want to go to comfort care and then go back, you just let me know. And she didn't know what to do. And I'm like, I can't make this decision for you. So she decided to go into comfort care. And before she could do that, we had to have a hospital bed at the home. So I spent the weekend with her at the hospital. And I had this unusual conversation with her where she kept pulling the covers back, saying that she was going to go home. And I said to her, I'm like, that's how we're going to play it? And I'm like, if you can get up and walk, I'll be right behind you. And she called me by my first and my middle name. And I'm like, ooh, you mean business. And that whole night, she kept asking where my father was. She had no concept of time. And I'm like, he's home in bed, asleep. He should be here. And I'm like, he will be here. He'll come first thing in the morning. And I called him and my sister. First thing in the morning, I said, Mom wants you to come in. And Dad was trying to get the hospital bed ready. And in waiting for my sister on this conversation with her, she's like, she's like, tra like she's a Miss Happy-Go-Lucky. Oh, I was just talking to a friend of mine about this. And I stopped her mid-sentence and said, do you realize our mother is dying? And it was at that point that she was like, I'll be right there. She wasn't seeing what I was seeing because of her heart. She had faith and hope. So as I'm waiting in the waiting room for my sister to come, and I'm sitting there, and of course I'm crying, this man comes over to me and he asked me if I was okay. And I said, no. And he goes, can I help you? And I said, can you heal my mother? And he goes, well, I could pray for her. And I said, I would so appreciate that. And with that, my sister comes in, I grab a hold of her hand, take her to mom's room. We kind of switch up the guards where Dad now comes with me, Lori stays with mom. And when I walked outside the door, here's this man standing in front of my mother's door with his hands up in the air, just like glowing. Now, I don't know if he worked for the hospital. I don't know if he followed me there, but to me, this was an angel that was sent. So there were other things, other signs that happened along the way. And my son was getting married the weekend that my mom came home. And at the wedding, my son said, you know what? I don't think we're going to go to the house to see grandma. They were going to go all dressed because, of course, she couldn't go. And I just kind of went, okay. And he said, I should go tonight. And I was like, maybe. So they went. She got to see them. They got to say everything they wanted to. That woman waited until after his wedding to pass. I got a call at 2:11 in the morning that she had passed. And as I'm driving up through the country to get to her, the other thing that she had said to me, I told her when she passes, she's going to have to send me signs. And she said, jokes? And I thought, oh gosh, I'm going to get pranked from beyond. I love practical jokes. So while I'm driving up this country road, all of a sudden the windows are down. I get this wafting scent of flowers. And I was like, Mom, I know that's there. And instantly, cow manure. I'm like, you got me. So I go up to the house. She's there. We're waiting for the coroner. I say my final goodbyes. My grandmother always sang You Are My Sunshine to me. I sang it to my kids and to my grandkids. When mom couldn't sleep in the hospital, I sang it and I spoke those words to her. And it comforted me because I felt like my grandmother was there with me, with my mom. So interesting, right? So after mom passed, I went to see a medium. Now, I saw the medium in March. She passed in April. I went in March. I always suggest to my clients, if someone passes, to wait 30 to 60 days before you see a medium. Your loved one needs time to gather the energy and transition. More importantly, you need to wrap your head around what's happening. So I told my husband that I was going to a medium. And he was like, you're a child of God. What are you doing? I don't believe in this stuff. No, no. And I'm like, I'm going. And my daughter's coming with me. And the medium was at my friend's house, Denise, who now helps me with everything. And it was a small group. I don't know if there were 4 or 5 of us there. I'm thinking there were 5, but 4, with my daughter or including myself. And my mom came through with flying colors. And the very first thing this woman said to me was, you are my sunshine. And I was like, oh my God, nobody knew that. I didn't share it with my sister. I didn't share it with my kids. I shared it with no one. Denise didn't know. No one knew. She talked about this coin that I carry in my pocketbook that my mom carried with her, and I had it with me. So she started talking to me about all these things. So after the reading was over, the medium says to me, she comes over and she says, can I talk to you after the session was over? And I thought, oh shit, I'm in trouble with the woo-woo woman. What did I do? Uh-oh. So I was like, okay. So she came over to me and she explained my panic attacks I had been having because they had come back. Not as hard, but they had come back. She explained how I couldn't walk in certain places because I felt like I was dodging things, how ticking clocks bothered me. And I was just like, who is this woman? So she said to me, listen, Spirit has a very big job for you. You either need to open up and trust or shut it down because otherwise they're going to make you crazy. And I had shared with her that I was already seeing a therapist because I thought I was schizophrenic. I was seeing, feeling, hearing things. And she just so gently said, my love, that's spirit. Your mother is the volume button now. She's your conduit. She's your connection to spirit. She will open up spirit for you. So I went home, talked to my hubby about it. Interesting conversation that was. So my husband looked at me and he said, you're not doing that. You're being tricked by the adversary. Mm-mm, no way. And I told him these things this woman said to me. And I said, the only thing I didn't understand is my mom kept saying, number one, number one. And his eyes got big and he was like, oh my God, that's for me. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, don't you remember when your sister got married, after we were married, I said to your mother, it's okay that you have a second son-in-law, but I'm number one. And when she would call the house, she would say, hey, let me talk to number one. And she would always say, you're my number one son-in-law. So when she said number one, she was referencing my husband. So all of a sudden, I had his attention. And with this, he was like, you need to pray about this. I'm not telling you to do it. I'm not telling you not to do it. But you need to honestly pray about this. So I did. And when we get back in a few minutes, I'm going to talk to you about how I had this conversation with God and how God answered. So we'll be back in a few minutes, connecting to Spirit with Stacey on Bold Brave TV.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back. This is Connecting to Spirit with Stacey. I'm your host, Evidential Medium Stacey Niedentohl, and your connection to the spirit realm. We're streaming live on Bold Brave TV and on multiple other platforms. If you've missed the full episode, go back to YouTube, go back to the archives and rewatch it. This is the first podcast, so you can learn all about who is this woo-woo woman. So before the break, I was explaining to you about how it all started, the panic attacks, my mom getting sick, the man that appeared in front of her door that was praying. And I went to a medium and she explained everything to me, and my husband going, you need to have a conversation with God. So that I did. And you'll learn as you watch, I'm pretty straightforward. So I don't get all holy and thou art this and this and this. I basically said, look, God, if this is what you want me to do, you need to show me signs. You need to put people in my path so that I know I'm going in the right direction. And if I miss it, show me again, because I miss things. And I said this over and over and over again. And probably, I don't know, the second or the third day, signs started showing up. And they were freaky. I was actually in my shop at Hip Gypsy Emporium. I was talking to one of our customers who's also a friend. And out of the blue, she says to me, when you start doing readings, let me know. And I looked at her, I'm like, what? And she goes, oh yeah, you're gonna be doing readings. You talk to those on the other side. And I'm like, I do not. And as we're having this conversation, out of the corner of my eye, this tiny little white feather started floating down. And I'm talking to her and I'm kind of looking up and I put my hand up and I said to her, do you see this? Do you see what's happening here? And it landed right in my hand and she goes, I do. I do see that. And I'm like, all right, those are two signs I couldn't miss. Someone talking to me about it, as well as this feather, right? So, other signs started showing up. Jeff and I do bike shows, and we go to this bike show 80 miles away. We're set up with all of our turquoise and jewelry and top hats and all these fun things. And it's a short show. It's from like, I don't know, 10 in the morning till 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But we get there early. We get there at, I don't know, 6 o'clock in the morning to set up. And once we're set up, he and I kind of take turns and we walk around and look at other vendors. Well, there was a vendor that was set up on the far side of the warehouse who was selling his business. And his business was the stickers that you put on your helmets. Now, Jeff and I have looked into adding that to what we sold, but good God, you have to buy so many stickers. So I said to him, I'm like, you're selling your business? And he goes, yeah. And I said, all right, you know what? I'm going to have my husband come over and talk to you. So I walked back to our booth, talked to my husband about it. He walks back over, calls me a few minutes later and says, babe, we just bought a business. Like, okay, you're working your booth, I'm working this booth. We're selling stickers now. So when my husband was having this conversation with him, this gentleman said, look, the only thing that I want back is I want the tables that everything's on. So Jeff, of course, is like, well, you're going to have to hang out for the show or come back when it's over. And the guy's like, man, it's so far away. So Jeff was like, well, where do you live? He lives literally less than like 8 miles from us. We're 80 miles away. We meet this man who has a sticker business. We're looking for a sticker business or to buy stickers. He has tables. He wants them back. We're 80 miles away. He lives literally 5 to 7 miles away from our home. So Jeff said to him, that's fine. When we get home, I'll give you a call. You can swing by the shop, see the shop, and you can get your tables back. So he comes to the shop and out of the blue, he says, you need to talk to my sister. And I said, why? And he goes, I don't know. I just feel like you need to talk to my sister. I'm like, well, where's your sister? And he says, Colorado. So I gave him my card and I said, look, if she wants to call me, that's fine. I don't call people that I don't know. Day or two later, I get this phone call from this woman. And she said, my brother was very adamant that I needed to talk to you. And I said, well, what do you need to talk about? And she goes, I don't know. And I said, well, I don't know either. So she says, what do you do? So I told her about my corporate job. And she said, no, that's not it. I told her about Hip Gypsy Emporium. She said, no, that's not it. And I'm like, well, what is it? And she said, I don't know. So I went, well, what do you do? She does whole being alignment. She works with consciousness. She disconnects past traumas. So I went, that's it. And she said, what do you mean? So I told her about my experience that I told you before. And she said, well, you know what? Next week I'm coming to visit my dad, who lives in Hagerstown, Maryland, or Williamsport, Maryland, which is 20 miles from us. Would you like to set up a meeting? I'm like, absolutely. So she comes, meets my husband and myself, does this whole being alignment on us, puts us into this meditation. I don't trust people. I'm sorry. You're sitting in my house. I got my eyes closed. I'm like opening one eye every once in a while, watching to see what she's doing. And as she's talking about something, all of a sudden I felt this pop in my side. And I was like, and she's like, what's the matter? I said, something popped. And she goes, hold on, let me look. So I opened the one eye and she's like doing this, like she's going through a filing cabinet. And she said, "Oh, yes, you had a broken rib at one time that never healed correctly from a past trauma." I'm like, "Holy shit, yes." She goes, "Okay, well, we'll fix that." And I could feel this warmth. So afterwards, we had a conversation, and I said, "Would you mentor me and teach me?" And she said, "Oh, you don't need me. I don't do what you do." And I'm like, "Well, what do I do?" And she said, "You talk to those on the other side." And I'm like, "I do not." She said, "Yes, you do." I know a friend of mine who I met in Australia who was a medium, have a reading by her. If the two of you mesh, see if she'll mentor you. So I called her. I had a reading. It was interesting. Um, and she told me it, it still is like amazes me. She told me, "You've been talking to the dead for a very long time." And I said, "No, no, I haven't." And she said, "Were you teased as a child about imaginary goats?" I was like, "Oh my God, it traumatized me as a kid." My parents all the time would say to me, "How are your goats? Where are your goats at? You bringing your goats along? Are they going to fit in the car?" They weren't goats, they were ghosts. And I couldn't say ghosts. And even now, when you hear me say goats and ghosts, they sound very, very similar. I was like first, second grade, maybe kindergarten. I don't know. So I was like, okay. So she begins to mentor me. And it was the second or the third class where she would show me a picture. I would tell her who this person in the picture was. And she said to me, "You don't need me. You just need to trust what you're saying, learn the signs, and practice. But here's what we're going to do first. We're going to do a meditation to open up your third eye. I'm going to connect you to your third eye. You're going to visualize your third eye." So we do this meditation. She's in Australia. I'm in Pennsylvania. It's like midnight here. I'm doing this meditation, and all of a sudden, I am transported back into my bedroom in first or second grade. I'm going to say second grade. I used to have a recurring nightmare of an eye chasing me around. It was my third eye. So ever since I was a child, my eye was trying to open, but it scared me. And I know that you think it's funny. Okay. I know some people think it's funny that I'm like afraid of my own shadow. When I go and I cleanse a house or I clear a house or I bless a house, I tell the client very upfront, if something is thrown at me, if I am told to get out, I'm out. I don't mess with that, right? You can talk to my friend who did the whole beam alignment. She's good at that. But this stuff freaks me out. I can talk to those on the other side, but I'm not going to have something thrown at me. There's a respect thing, right? So, um, after that, and this mentor, this teacher told me to start practicing. I started practicing. And one of the first people I practiced on was the woman from Colorado. And she even helped me with some of the things that came through that I didn't understand, but she'd go, "Oh, I know what that means." And she would explain it to me. And then I started doing it by donations. And then I would charge a very little bit. And I was meeting with one person, and then I would meet with, can I bring my mom with me? Well, can my sister come? So it kept being more and more people. And then I started doing intimate groups of 5. And then I would do intimate groups of 10. And then platform speaking. But before the platform speaking, I I started to seek out a mentor. And a mentor, just like the Colorado woman, she said, "When you need one, one will appear." And I went to do a class with John Holland and Joe Shield several years ago. And I never heard of Joe Shield, but I've heard of John Holland. And this class was very interesting but I wanted more. And it put me in touch with Joe. And doors just started opening about that. And when we get back, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to talk to you about when you need a mentor will appear. And appear he did.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com.
Welcome back. I'm Stacey Niedentohl, Evidential Medium. This is Connecting to Spirit with Stacey. I'm your connection to Spirit during this hour. Before the break, I was talking to you about the phrase that this one friend sent to me who is a spiritualist, I guess is a good word, when she said to me, when you need a mentor will appear. And it was no coincidence, I guess, that I met Joe Shield at a training. But I was starting to think about getting a mentor, and out of the blue, I get this email, this application for a 2-year mentorship program with spirit artist Joe Shield. So I filled out the application. We had a conversation, and I was accepted into his mentorship. And through that, I got over my fear of platform speaking. So what's platform speaking? I'm not afraid to speak in public. I'm not afraid to speak in front of a lot of people, but I did have a fear of speaking to more than 10 or 12 people in an auditorium, in a church, about spirit and their loved ones coming through. It was very hard for me to wrap my head around if you paid to get a ticket to come in and you didn't receive a message, I left you down. And he was able to help get me over that hump. He was able to show me to hone my skills on giving evidence of things. And, I pop around a lot the word evidential medium because there needs to be evidence of the continuity of life. When you go to a medium, if they are very vague, and there's stereotype that figures because of how old you look, you probably have lost a parent. I have this mother, father figure. Would you understand losing that? Oh, your grandfather. You know what? They're okay and they love you very much and they're very proud of you. Next. So evidence is stating several different pieces of evidence. I have this man coming through. It feels like Well, here we go. I have this. So I have this pain in my back. And generally, when there's a pain in my back, it lets me know that there was a lung or a liver issue. So it would have been a cancer that started with one and spread to the other. Now, he feels like he's a little bit higher than you, but he's also over. So spirit comes to me in levels. So up and over would probably be a brother to your father, so an uncle. And then I would come back to the audience, come back to the client. Would you understand an uncle or a friend of your father, cousin, that type, on that level, um, who passed of liver cancer? Yes, I do understand that. Okay, let me go back. So I'm giving you evidence. I'm talking about maybe their personality. If someone were to come to me and talk to me about the great relationship that I had with so and so, but our relationship wasn't good, you've lost me, right? So I have to feel into spirit. I have to feel into the energy and say the signals and the signs that are coming through. I have to give you evidence that they're right here in this room. When you set an appointment up with me, if you don't want to give me your name, I'm fine with that. I've done blind readings where I don't know the person's name. I can't see them. Um, Joe has done um, um, what do you want to exercises where we have a blindfold on. We switch places, and you have to do a reading with a blindfold, and you have no idea where anybody's sitting. Sometimes we have to tap on you can't even hear their voice. So if you don't want to give me your name, that's fine. I'm cool with it. Spirit will bring through who needs to come through to help heal you. Because most people who come to me are at a crossroads, or they're looking for direction, or they're looking for a message from their loved one that can help some part of them heal. Now, will it take everything away? Absolutely not. But it can start that healing process. And my intention is to let you know that I am a child of God. I'm an evidential medium and a spiritual healer with the ability to channel spirit using love and light. I'm not the medium that says, I see death all around you and you're going to be dead in 10 days. Those mediums appear, and if you pay them $1,500, they can heal you. Those mediums are few and far between, hopefully. We're bringing into this new generation of evidential mediums so that you know without a doubt this is your loved one. So I speak this intention and I mean it, and I'm very serious about what I do. Yes, we laugh and we cry and we have a good time, but it is to help you heal, to tell you your loved one is only a whisper away. All you have to do is talk to them. They meant a lot to you in this lifetime, but they're still with you. They are part of who you are. And my job as a medium is to bring that through. That's what I do in the most loving way possible. I want you to know without a shadow of a doubt, if you are open and you don't play stump the medium, you will have a very good experience. And we'll talk about what stump the medium is on another show. But this is Connecting to Spirit with Stacey, and I hope this hour that we've been together gives you the peace to know that there are trustworthy evidential mediums out there and that your loved one is only a whisper away. I hope it will help you to encourage you to be open to spirit, to the possibilities that there is another realm. And I want you to tune in next week when we will talk about how to find a medium, why should I go to a medium, and what's a good and a bad medium. All of this is all about healing through the healing journey together, that hopefully this hour that we have together can bring that to you. And I thank you so very, very much for tuning in to the first podcast of Connecting to Spirit with Stacey, streaming on Bold Brave TV. To find out more information about how to schedule an appointment with me or who I am, all of my connections, all of my Facebook, social, YouTube, it's all under Connecting to Spirit with Stacey. Whether it's at gmail.com, Facebook, Instagram, it's all under Connecting to Spirit with Stacey. If you have a show idea, email me. If you have a question, email me. I'm open to it. I want to be able to show you that spirit is alive and well. They're just in a different chapter, in a different realm, to bring you to the point where maybe you can breathe a little bit better, to be able to live the life you love and love the life you live. I will see you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. here on Connecting to Spirit with Stacey. Thank you so much for being here with me tonight, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
This has been Connecting to Spirit with Stacey. Tune in each week as Stacey delves into the journey of life, healing, and spiritual connection, inviting listeners to open their hearts, clear their minds, and create the life they love. Right here, Tuesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network, powered by B2 Studios.